the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, hosted by me, yours truly, Jeffrey Bellomo, where we discuss all things estate planning and elder law. And well, hey, anything else we want to talk about. Now, lucky for you, today is going to fall squarely under the estate planning and elder law category, as I am joined by one of my teammates and my friend, Cathy Montague. Cathy, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Excellent. Cathy is a part of our probate department at Bellomo and Associates, and she has been an incredible addition, which I will explain, or she will explain here in a few minutes. But as always, I just want to do a quick disclaimer before we get into the actual podcast today. Please do not take anything that you hear today, or any other radio show for that matter, to constitute legal advice. If you are looking to receive legal advice specifically for the situation that you are looking for advice in, please contact an attorney licensed in the state that you reside in and someone who practices in the area regarding the question that you have. And once you meet with them, then and only then can you receive legal advice specific to your situation. This show and any other show should be looked at for information, entertainment, and educational purposes only. And while we are going to have a lot of fun, please don't take what you hear to constitute legal advice. Now, I really don't think that's going to be an issue today, but hey, it never hurts to do a disclaimer. And at Bellomo and Associates, we offer free educational workshops. We have educational workshops in the pre-planning context, someone looking to get pre-planning done, maybe powers of attorney for finances, medical, last will and testament, or maybe some trust planning, maybe a revocable trust or an asset protection trust or a tax planning trust. We also offer crisis planning workshops for individuals or loved ones who are going to need long-term care, let's say within the next 6 months to a year. We have special needs planning workshops for individuals who have family members with special needs who may be receiving public benefits, and the receipt of an inheritance or any other money would disqualify them for benefits. And we have a life care planning workshop. Team member Meg Motter, our social worker on our team, will meet with you to decide or discuss how to age in place, how to maximize your home, how to make sure you can stay there as long as possible. And if that is no longer a possibility, what are the options for you and your family, maybe for assisted living or long-term care or other options to bring care into the home. And finally, we offer administration workshops. And this is where Cathy and her team in the probate department come in. When we lose a loved one, we have to administer the estate, whether it be probate, an asset that was left in an individual's name alone at the time of their death that will have to go through their will, or whether it goes through trust administration, which is because the asset was titled in the name of the trust at the time of death, or maybe both, right? In some cases, you have assets in a trust and you have assets in a person's name alone. And we offer free educational workshops in those contexts as well. So with all that said, Cathy, how's it going today?
It's going just fine, thank you.
Excellent. So tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
I've been doing probate for about 37 years, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yep. And I used to work for an elder law attorney. And I don't believe we had too many estates to begin with, but I kind of was just thrown into it, I think. And,
okay.
Had to learn the process and attend workshops, and it's just, that's how I learned it. Just been doing it ever since.
So probate wasn't something like you had a calling for, like you grew up as a young lady and said, I want to be a probate paralegal one day.
No, actually as a little girl, I used to love to play secretary.
Fair enough. And you were doing a little bit of everything from what it sounds like, huh?
Right, exactly. Yes, I used to do wills and POAs, type deeds, but then it became primarily probate was what I did.
Wow. Well, always fun when you're in a situation where you're working for an attorney doing a whole bunch of stuff. I got to imagine you have some pretty good stories. I mean, practicing working 37 years, I got to imagine you have a few good ones out there.
I probably have a few. I think the one that stands out the most was probably in about 1995. We got a phone call from a gentleman that he and his colleagues were performing a show down at a hotel, and they put all of their cash into the hotel safe.
Okay.
And the management at the hotel, I guess, thought maybe these funds came about illegally. They weren't sure, so they brought in the local enforcement officers and contacted our office to see if we could help them get the money out of the safe deposit box that they had. Here it turns out they were mostly $1 bills because it was a gentleman's show such as like the Chippendales.
Oh!
I know, hilarious. And the funny thing was that they called our office because I worked for a very conservative attorney at the time. That was really what was funny about the whole thing. But we were successful. They got their money back.
Oh, wow. And did you help them do that, or no? Did he not get involved?
Probably, yeah. I'm sure I helped him some way, shape, or form besides taking the phone calls and making the phone, responding to phone calls. But I don't remember it back then. That was so long ago. It wasn't letters. I believe he actually physically drove down there and kind of got involved. But yeah.
Wow. Yeah, fascinating knowing who it was and knowing his background and stuff. Wow, that is very fun.
We had a lot of laughs about that.
I could only imagine.
And we were paid in $1 bills.
Oh, even better. Even better. What a story. Oh, I love it. Oh, man. All right, so you didn't wake up, as a young kid wanting to do this, but as you're in it, because I know now you've been doing it exclusively, at least for a couple of years with us, and I know even prior to that you were doing a lot more towards the end there. What is it about probate that you enjoy? I'm sure there's something, or you wouldn't be doing it.
I think I most enjoy, because I've lost both of my parents, so I know the heartache of losing your loved one. And it doesn't end there. You have all of their household items, you have their bank accounts, you have other family members, that you have to be accountable to. And I think I just enjoy kind of walking through that process with them, being able to answer their questions and just reassure them that, hey, we're going to get through this. I'm going to do the best I can to make this as easy for you as possible. I think that's what I enjoy the most. I really get to meet a lot of great people, and because I'm working with them for at least a year. Yeah. So it's not a quick in and out process.
Yeah. So to that end, why does the probate process take, a year or more? Just maybe give a little background for the listeners on that.
Sure. When we advertised the estate with two different agencies in the county that we did the probate. And according to PA law, creditors have 1 year to submit a bill from that advertisement date. And that right there, just, and if you've taken your time to come to us so that we probate the will, that's automatically kind of pushing that date out as well. So we would love for it to be a shorter process, but that's obviously out of our hands, and it takes a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember several years ago, it's been a few years now, but I was talking to a lady one day on the phone, and she was trying to understand why it was taking as long as it was. And I reminded her of the workshop, and I reminded her of the video and the guide and everything that we provide, explaining that over and over again. And she remembered it, but she said, well, I feel like, you don't want this to close. You don't want me to finish. You don't want me to end. And I said, may I ask a question? She said, yeah. I said, when do we get paid? And she said, well, not till it closes. I said, okay, so what would be the rationale for me not? And she goes, oh, I never thought of that. I'm like, man, trust me, I want this to end for a whole bunch of reasons. But the main reason is because I want you to be able to get closure. I want you to be able to move on and close the estate and have that closure for yourself. But there is no benefit for me to not want it to close, even if that's not the reason, for the reason as simple as, you want to get paid at some point as well for the work that you're doing. And she's like, yeah, you're probably right. And we had a good laugh about it, but it is funny how when you're in something, particularly something emotional, I mean, I think people underestimate how stressful and how emotional, and it's almost like you're reliving the death of a loved one over and over again. Yeah. And that's not easy, not easy at all.
It's definitely not easy. And so when I send out that first email or make that first phone call that says, please accept my condolences, that's truly how we feel. I wish I could say more.
Yeah.
But they need to move on. They don't need to hear that, But then on the flip side of that, we have clients that don't want to finalize things because they feel like this is the last
Oh,
attachment that they have to mom or dad. So we have to kind of encourage them to say, we have these filing dates. We have to conclude. We have to bring this to a conclusion.
wow. Kathy, I don't know that I've ever thought of that.
Yeah, doesn't happen often, but it
Wow.
does happen.
Well, sure. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Like,
Yeah,
it's the last thing that they have that tie, so they don't want it to end. Oh, wow. Yeah, that would be very tough for an individual. I never thought of it from that perspective.
yeah,
When I get asked that question about what I love about doing probate and estate planning and elder law, I mean, what you said is exactly the reason that I give. And then when people ask, what's the flip side of it? Is there anything that you don't like? It's the same thing. It's the emotional losing a loved one. I mean, in a lot of cases, what we do is, you plan for an incapacitation or you plan for death, and then maybe someone enters a nursing home, also not a wonderful sort of part of your life, and then someone passes away, so that's the flip side is, yes, we're there to hold the hand of the loved one through a process, and it's very rewarding, and it's good to know that you're helping people. But on the flip side, you're also with people through some of the worst times of their life, which is never easy
definitely.
either.
Right.
Yeah, it's very difficult, very difficult.
Yeah.
So as far as like if you were meeting somebody on the streets, and somebody said, "What do you do, Kathy?" "Oh, I do probate administration." In a nutshell, how would you explain that to someone on the street corner who knows nothing about what we do?
You're right. Sometimes the word probate throws them off. They don't
Yeah.
really know what that word means. I usually say that I work with loved ones, or I work with family members after their loved one has passed away. I walk them through the process of filing documents, closing accounts, paying bills. There's certain deadlines that we have to meet. That's what I tell them. I just say I walk through that process from start to finish, and that you're usually with me for at least a year.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes more as well. Yeah, it is a very kind of formulaic process in terms of we got to check this box and check this box and check this box and move on to the next. So,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
one of those jobs that I don't know if it will ever go away. Um,
probably not. Probably not. The reason that we go through probate is because we have assets in our name alone. And, yes, you can always try to joint own things. But the truth is, if one person or one joint owner passes away, it is then left into another person's name. And ultimately, even if we try to plan around it, oftentimes because of death or other reasons, it ends up becoming a situation as well. So I don't know that it will ever go away.
right, and back to those joint accounts. It, it's well intended, but we always say, please trust your child that you're going to be a joint account holder with. Most of the time it's just for convenience purposes. We know that.
Yeah.
But, in 35, 37 years, I have definitely come across a few siblings that say, sorry,
Oh,
Mom, I'm the joint account holder. That money's mine. I'm not sharing.
yeah. And I mean, I know I've only been doing this for a little over 20 years, so you definitely have a lot of years on me, but I can't tell you how many times I've had that happen. And I can't tell you how many times I've also had a situation where a joint owner is in a horrific, car accident, or
Right.
they end up having an issue themselves and they end up needing long-term care, or they go through a divorce, or they go through, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that can happen. Bad things do happen to good people. As much as, you might trust someone, you might love them. If something bad happens to them, it could also impact you. And not only that, but there's tax implications. I know you and I have both had cases where a child passes before a parent, and the parent doesn't have any idea that they're going to get a tax bill, that they're going to owe 4.5% on the money that was theirs because they had a joint owner on it. And of course, they want to know, well, why didn't the lawyer tell me, or why didn't the bank teller tell me, or why? And the truth is, well, I don't have an answer, frankly, but I think part of it might be that they didn't know. I think we give advice. A lot of people give advice and they don't understand the implications on the back end. I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but I was in line at a local bank and just going to deposit a check. And I overheard the teller say I'm going to guess she was probably in her mid 80s. I'm guessing. And the teller said, "Ma'am, you have to hurry up and add joint accounts to everything you own so that you can avoid probate and you can avoid lawyers and you can avoid this, And I'm listening to the teller, and of course, none of my business. I'm just listening. And then when the lady left, I walked up to the teller and I said, "Hey," she said, "Jeff, how are you?" I said, "Oh, I'm doing great." I said, "I overheard that conversation a little bit." And she's like, "Yeah, she has to hurry up and get that done, doesn't she?" And I said, "Well, as long as she knows for sure that her son's not going to die first and that her son's not going to be in a car accident, her son's not going to pass away first, or she's not going to end up in a nursing home, her son's not going to have a creditor, her son." And she looked at me and said, "Well, what does that matter?" And I said, "Well, maybe you shouldn't be giving advice to people if you don't know why it matters, because it matters." And now that lady thinks that this is bar none, the right thing to do. And it might be. I'm not suggesting it is or isn't. I'm just saying that before you can make a decision, you have to understand the implications. And, I know over the last several years, I've been giving the same workshop. It's called a 3 lands workshop, where I run around the room and teach people what it does in tax land versus long-term care land versus estate planning land. But that situation is part of why that got created, because I realized that I think people look to professionals and they want the answer. They want to be told what to do. But Correct. What people don't understand is, unless you can tell us exactly how things are going to end up, who's going to be healthy, who's not going to be healthy, are you going to just die in your sleep, are you going to end up in a nursing home, are your kids going to have addictions, are your kids going to have issues, are they going to have marriage problems, we can't tell you what to do. And exactly. I think that running around the room, while maybe humorous to some, and certainly humorous to me at times, is very telling. And it's the phrase I always use is, in physics, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And in estate planning and elder law, for every decision, there's an equal and opposite consequence. And it doesn't sound nearly as good as the physics phrase, but it gets the point across. And so you're exactly right. I mean, I can't give you enough credit on that one. I mean, we're not suggesting that it's never a good idea. We're not suggesting that you shouldn't possibly do it. But before you do it, you should understand the consequences of what if this happens, what if that happens, what if this happens. And then ultimately, depending on what you value to be the most important, is going to be the decision that you're going to make. And through that, I don't know if you and I have ever had this conversation, but I really don't question professionals anymore. I remember 20 years ago, had a client in my office telling me a situation, and it turned out not good. I mean, it turned out bad. It turned out exactly how they didn't expect it to turn out. And I remember in that meeting thinking to myself, wow, I can't believe that attorney was that stupid. Like, I know him very well, and he's one of the smartest people I know. Wow, that was a pretty dumb decision. No. It wasn't a dumb decision. The facts didn't turn out the way that they thought they were going to. So it has nothing to do with the decision that was made. It has to do with the way that the facts ended up turning out, and that wasn't what we expected to happen. It might have been the perfect decision for that client on that day. But I don't even question. I say, well, there was a reason why they decided it, and clearly they weren't counting on the facts to turn out the way that they did. But that doesn't mean they made a bad decision.
Right.
So
totally agreed.
Yeah, it's very fascinating, very fascinating. So, it's a fun. I think it's a wonderful, very interesting practice area. And you came from a fairly small practice and joined us when we were able to acquire the law firm and help his clients out to make sure that they had representation. I don't know that I've ever asked you this, but was there anything about joining us that surprised you or stood out to you, or that you like or enjoy, or anything at all? I've never actually asked you that.
I like to think of it as you inherited me.
Yes, I love that.
You inherited me. It's very different from the prior firm. I would say we're more thorough.
Okay.
in this practice.
Fair enough.
But yeah, the practices that we have in place are definitely, I appreciate more thorough. Um, it's a just a great working environment.
Oh, thank you.
My coworkers in the same department are,
Wonderful.
I think of them as friends first, coworkers second. The support that we have. I used to worry about that, Jeff. Where was
Yeah.
I going to go because he was definitely beyond retirement age. So you knew that one day he was going to retire.
Yeah.
I thought, am I going to have to go through the whole interview process again? Where am I, I'm part-time.
Yeah.
Can I stay part-time? There was a lot of things running around. So yes, I was very surprised when I went in that one day and he told me that he had sold
Yeah.
the practice and that I was going to be meeting the attorney that afternoon. He was going to come down and would like to meet us. So, but
Wow.
yeah, I think it was an answer to prayer. It really was.
I don't know if I've ever told you this, but the one thing I really, really, really respect, I mean, I respect a lot about him. I don't mean it that way, but one of the things that stood out to me was he was most concerned about you and Sue. I mean, he was concerned about his two team members.
And I'm not surprised by that.
No, I mean, no matter what conversation we were having, and he expressed to me, I'm concerned because you have several more team members than we do, and I don't want them to get pushed out. I don't want them to not feel part of a team. I don't want them, and it's hard to assure somebody of something when you don't know them that well. I mean, I didn't know him all that well either.
Right. And you
But
didn't know us.
No,
I mean,
but I do remember saying to him, I promise you, the culture that we have at our firm is no matter how many people there may be on the team, I really truly believe that every one of us is family and that we truly care about each other and we have each other's backs. And I can assure you of that. I can tell you that I will definitely be there for them and take care of them. And he was like, okay, I'm good then.
that satisfied him, yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't.
And it has been that way. I mean, absolutely.
Thank you. But he wasn't worried about the money. He wasn't worried about. I mean, he was worried about clients. I don't want it to appear that way either. But
Sure.
but first, he was worried about you and Sue, and that said a lot about him and his character. And but I just remember going home that night telling my wife, I tried to assure him, but how do you assure somebody of something when they don't even know you? And her response to me was, "You just show Cathy and Sue when they get on the team by actions." And I was like, you know what? That's a good point. Like you can talk all you want, but at the end of the day, put up or shut up. I guess I don't have a better phrase for it, but
Right? Absolutely. Yeah. And here I am 2 years already. So.
I know. I that got brought up the other day, and I was like, it's been 2 years. Now, on one hand, I can't believe it's been 2 years, but on the other hand, it feels like we've worked together for my entire career. So it is weird. Like it's a little weird on both sides of that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a client call me, and I was talking to them, and I didn't recognize the name, and that doesn't always mean anything. I mean, I don't necessarily know every single person
Sure.
that we talk to, but she said, well, I have to let you know, I called Cathy, and I asked her, am I going to like this guy? Does this guy know what he's doing? And she said, she assured me that you are one of the nicest people that I will ever meet and one of the kindest individuals, and she has been right. And, that meant a lot to me because we don't get an opportunity to talk on a regular basis. And, I always was like, I hope Cathy and Sue are happy. I hope they're enjoying the process. I hope and so that just spoke so much to me. I was like, oh, that's so good to hear. So
Good. I'm glad,
really
I'm glad
is.
that she called you.
yeah, I don't even remember who it was. I mean, obviously I wouldn't say it here, but that was a moment. And maybe most importantly of all of this, I know you are so proud of your family and your grandkids, and every time you talk about them, you light up. It is so fun for me to watch you on. Now it happens to be on Zoom, on video conferencing a lot of the time, but
Sure.
it's just so fun to watch, and the incredible talking about your weekends and stuff and your grandkids.
They do make my husband and I very proud. All three of our kids and our grandchildren and our daughter-in-law and son-in-laws as well.
Oh,
They're just all great people. And
that is
just
awesome.
very proud of them and their accomplishments.
Yeah, as you should be. As you should be. It is fun watching you light up, and I had an opportunity to meet your husband, and a couple times, but get to know him a little better recently at a get together and talking cycling and those kind of things. I'm a wannabe. I'm not at the level he is at, but man, it's fun to listen to him.
Yeah, I was going to say, he just mentioned that recently about getting Jeff out on the bike.
Yeah.
You might be hearing from him in the near future.
Let him know. I've been logging my about 30 minutes a day, trying to get my legs under me because I don't want to embarrass myself. To be completely transparent, it's one of my fears. I haven't rode in years, and so for the last couple of weeks, I've been trying to get 30 minutes in and trying to get some miles under me so that when we go out, I certainly won't be able to ride at the clip that he does, but to not embarrass myself is my goal. So
you would if I don't embarrass him, you would never embarrass him.
Oh,
Because when we ride together, it's on the bike trails, the rail trail.
yeah.
And I have a beautiful Nantucket basket in the front of my bike that I wouldn't say he's embarrassed by, but he
Right.
isn't wild about it. And I also have a little cha-ching, cha-ching.
Oh, I love it.
So, yeah. So you would never embarrass him.
I didn't know that you rode, Cathy. I had no idea.
For fun.
Yeah.
For fun. Although one time we were on the rail trail and a young lady who was jogging with her dog passed me. So I'm not going that fast, Jeff.
Understood. You know, I did one sprint triathlon about 10 years ago, and it was at Mount Gretna, and I the whole ride I was doing pretty well. I was feeling pretty good. The swim was hard, but I was in pretty good shape, so I was like, all right. I got out there, I got on the bike, and I was going, and I remember thinking about 3/4 of the way through, wow, this is pretty doable. Like I think I got this. Like I'm good. And I remember making a right-hand turn. It was towards the end of the ride, and I looked up, and I could see the top of the road. And I thought to myself, oh, no, like this isn't good. And I started the climb, and about halfway through, I looked through the guy next to me, and I said, this is crazy. Like, this is a hill. And he says, Bellomo. I said, what? He goes, Mount Gretna. And I went, Mount... Oh, he goes, you didn't think of that before we signed up for this? I said, no, I didn't. But it just, oh man, those hills can kill you if you're not ready for them.
That's why I stick to rail trails. They're pretty flat.
Flat. And I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I always tell people who are getting ready to do those types of bike rides, like it's one thing, to ride on a flat surface, but to try to go up hills and stuff, you better be ready. And that's actually my only worry is I knew I could go straight for a little while. But if there was any hills at all, he was going to have to put me in an ambulance and carry me home because it wasn't going to happen. Now I feel like I could at least do a couple hills, and I'm trying to get the miles logged under me. So, as I fully expected, Cathy, we are already at our time. Like I could sit and talk to you all day. So
yeah, this was fun.
It was so fun. I've loved getting to know you. I've loved working with you, and I tell a lot of people one of the best things that ever happened to me was inheriting the practice in order to be able to inherit you and work with you. And it's just been a breath of fresh air. And you are so good for our clients and for the community. And so thank you for what you do. I cannot believe it's been 37 years. 37 years. That's incredible. So I want to thank the listeners of the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show for being with us today. Thank you for your continued support. And we definitely look forward to hearing you and hearing from you on upcoming podcasts and shows. And until next time, we'll see you real soon.